Welcome to Strategic Business Leader. Hi again, I'm Miss Magdalene, and this is going to be the second part of the series of videos that I will be providing for all of you in the future. Now, the earlier video, I was talking about the rationale of SBL, but in this particular video, I'm going to demonstrate to you the need for using professional skills in SBL. But today I will only cover two skills for you to digest a little bit better. And in the next video, I will cover the rest of the three skills that is required. Now, professional skills will take 20 marks of your exams. Now, the reason for having these professional skills is that ACCA wanted students to acquire a certain level of competency so that at the end of the day, they will be able to demonstrate a range of professional skills demanded by effective leaders. That's because ACCA believes that many accountants in the future could end up being strategic advisors or even being business leaders in the future. So being strategic advisors and business leaders, you may need to acquire a certain level of skill to be competent. Now, for example, when you look at the specimen exams given by ACCA on the website for SBL, you may see that the questions may put you in the role of a business analyst in the consultancy division of an audit firm, where you could be giving advice for potential acquisitions to your client, or you could be giving advice to resolve some financing issues for your client, or perhaps maybe your client is asking you for ways to revamp their IT and technology aspects and other topics that are covered under SBL. Or you could be put in the role of an audit manager to advise a client to implement an internal audit function. Or you could be even put in the role of an audit manager to give your views on improving corporate governance of a client. To demonstrate, and the 5 professional skills is communication, commercial acumen, skepticism, analysis, and evaluation. Now for today's video, as I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to cover communication and commercial acumen. Now, one of the most important professional skills in SBL is to demonstrate the ability for you to communicate. Now, the skill of communication means to express yourself clearly through a medium. So you could be asked to prepare a briefing note, a PowerPoint slide, or some form of a format, but at the same time, being sensitive to the needs of the intended audience. So under the communication skills, you have to remember to do these 3 things: to inform, to persuade, to clarify. Try and remember the acronym of IPC. Now, to inform means to use the appropriate media and tone, as well as language. So this one depends very much on the audience that you are addressing. And you have to use your information in a way that you can inform concisely on certain things. I will show you an example in a while. Now, the other requirement under communication is to persuade, because sometimes you may be given a scenario where you may have to demonstrate the ability to counter argue when appropriate. That means you have to support your arguments with facts, and you may have to use active verbs like I believe, I recommend, I disagree, because. Now, the next part under the communication is to clarify, because when you express yourself clearly through a medium and thinking about the needs of the intended audience, it is important that as strategic leaders, you must be able to simplify communication, even with the most complex issues, by focusing on key points, not overwriting, using headings to break down, and maybe even arguing in a most logical order. So let's take an example of how you can apply your communication skills. So for example, Just imagine you're in the integrated case study of SBL, and you are an audit partner at Kensei and Chan. And one of your existing clients wanted some advice on the issue of big data. Now, by the way, big data is a topic in your SBL. And this is the question. Prepare 2 presentation slides. So your 2 presentation slides will be your format that you have to follow. And the presentation slides has to come with accompanying notes about the issue of big data, because your client wants some advice from you. And the professional skills is to demonstrate communication skills for a meeting with the client's board of directors. So the board of directors is your audience. So my question is, how do you get marks? Now let me give you a little bit of the marking guide given by ACCA over the months of conferences and webinars. Now, you can see the allocation for the question of the marks is 8. So in other words, it will be 4 marks per slide and to show accompanying notes. Now, I will deal with the format later. I'm just dealing with the skills now. Now, in terms of professional skills, you will be getting an extra 2 marks to inform, persuade, and clarify, IPC. Remember the acronym IPC. Now, this is for communication skills. So when you prepare the slides and when you prepare the accompanying notes, remember to inform, persuade, clarify. So first and foremost, remember your audience. Remember your audience is the board. So your tone has to be professional, but please remember to use simple language, not too much technical terms, because the board of directors may not exactly know what is big data. So when you write your contents in your slides and your accompanying notes, remember to keep it simple. Remember what I mean by clarifying, right? To simplify something even though it's a complex issue. And you have to assume that they have no knowledge of big data. So in your contents, you may be allowed to define what is big data, what are types of big data. This is part of informing and clarifying. Then you can perhaps persuade a little bit, where you can benefit, how it can benefit the company in using big data. And this one depends very much on the case study. Why perhaps the board is interested in the idea of big data. So you may have to use something along the line of the case study, how big data may benefit the company. So what happens, so my students always ask me this question, what happens if I forget to use the right format? That means if I did not prepare presentation slides and I forget the skills. Now there are 2 things here, the format and the skills. Now if you forget to use the format, they will probably deduct some marks for you. But if you forget the skills, marks will also not be given to you. So you will only not be judged by your content. Okay, you will only be judged by your content, and usually when you don't inform, persuade, and clarify, it will not be shown in your contents. Okay, so therefore you will get very little marks, maybe 2 or 3 marks out of the 10 marks. Because when you don't use IPC, your contents will show it very clearly as well, even though you may use the right format, but you did not demonstrate the skills. Now, the next professional skill is commercial acumen. Now, to me, this is one of the hardest skills because you have to show awareness of the wider business and external factors affecting the business. So this is where you may need to apply more of your knowledge into the case study, and you have to use commercially sound judgment and insight to resolve issues and exploit opportunities. So under commercial judgment, remember 3 things. You need to show awareness about what is happening in the company, what strategic decisions the company is thinking about. You may need to use your judgment to draw out key points relevant to the scenario so that you can address the issues at hand and recommend solutions which are relevant or justified in the context of the case. And you may have to show insight. Insight here means to consider practical and organizational issues. Like, for example, you may have to think about, is it feasible? Is it acceptable? Before you recommend something. Let me give you another example on commercial acumen. So for example, again, if you are given an integrated case study, you are an audit manager at Kenze and Chan, responsible for the audit of Sapu Sapi company, and you have been asked by Anthony Ho, the finance director of the company, to advise whether it would be appropriate to set up an internal audit function. Again, the topic of internal audit is part of your SBL syllabus. So the question is, prepare a briefing note. So remember, the briefing note is a format. Again, I'll remind you, I will do another video on format. But you're preparing a briefing note to the FD of Sapu Sapi, which makes the case for setting up an internal audit function, 12 marks. And the professional skills is demonstrate commercial acumen skills, showing the contribution that an internal audit could make, 4 marks. So the total marks, again, is 60 marks. So remember, even when you prepare the briefing note, you must demonstrate the professional skills under commercial acumen. So remember your acronym, right? Showing awareness, showing judgment, showing insight. So try to remember AJI, AJI acronym. So remember, again, looking at your marking guide, you have to show awareness of the benefits of an internal audit function to the company and relate it to the situation of the company. I believe if they give you a question like that, most likely the company could be facing some issues, maybe related to internal controls or some other aspects. And then you may have to show a little bit of commercial judgment. Because why? Because setting up an IAA function may incur cost. So you may have to demonstrate whether the benefits may outweigh the cost of setting up an IAA function, as shareholders may question such a cost to the company. And again, you may need to demonstrate a bit more insight, practicality, practical issues like recommending how it should be set up. Because at the end of the day, we want to set up an internal audit function which may benefit the company and not just setting up one. Even if you use the right format, even if you use briefing note, but remember, if the contents did not use the AGI, awareness, AJI, awareness, judgment, and insight, marks will be very, very low. Okay, and if you only memorize and put in advantages of internal audit but did not relate to the case study, 0 marks. Now, if you did not make a judgment and show insight, if you did not do this, again, your marks will not be too high. You probably get like 1 to 1.5 marks, even though you may relate to the case study. But of course, if you also showed insight, you showed awareness, you showed judgment, you showed insight, most likely you will get 2 marks per point. So this is a rough guide to how the markers will mark SBL in the future from September 2018 onwards. So this video has been useful to you because in the next video, I will cover the other 3 professional skills, which is skepticism, analysis, and evaluation. Thank you. See you in the next video.